The Mockery, the Grand Assembly, the Nexus Prime. Space station hung like a jeweled crown against the backdrop of the Andromeda Nebula. Its crystalline spires twisted through space, connected by flowing energy bridges that pulsed with the light of a dozen different stellar technologies. This was the heart of galactic civilization, where the 12 most powerful species in the known universe gathered to decide the fate of countless worlds. Ambassador Marcus Chun stood at the center of the vast assembly hall, his simple blue earth uniform a stark contrast to the exotic regalia surrounding him. Above, the dome showed a perfect view of the cosmos, stars wheeling slowly as the station rotated. The chamber itself defied human understanding, with seats that floated at impossible angles, some species requiring different gravities, different atmospheres, different realities entirely. The Zephyrians hovered as beings of pure energy, their forms shifting between colors humans had no names for. The massive Krotak delegates sat in chairs reinforced with neutronium, their scaled hides bearing the scars of 1,000 battles. The Veil Consortium representatives remained hidden behind psychic barriers, their presence felt rather than seen. Each species represented billions of worlds, trillions of beings, and technology that spanned millennia. Chun cleared his throat, a simple human sound somehow carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "Honored delegates of the Galactic Coalition Council," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down on him. "I come before you today not as a conqueror or a supplicant, but as a representative of humanity seeking to join this great alliance of civilizations." The catalog of Mockery sound like breaking crystal filled the chamber. The Zephyrians were laughing, their energy forms flickering with what could only be amusement. Soon, other sounds joined them. The deep rumbling of Krotic humor, the chittering of the insectoid swarms, the harmonic discord of the silicon builders. High Chancellor Vextar of the Krotak Empire rose from his massive seat, his 3-meter frame casting a shadow across the chamber floor. His voice was like grinding stone when he spoke. "Humanity," he said, the word dripping with disdain. "You arrive in ships that barely breach the light barrier. Your weapons are chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Your lifespans measure in decades, while we count centuries or millennia." The chamber erupted in agreement. Chun stood unmoved as species after species catalogued humanity's perceived failures. The aquatic collective spoke of humanity's inability to survive in deep ocean worlds. The gas giant nomads mocked their dependence on solid planets. The machine intelligence questioned whether biological life could even be considered truly sentient. "Your species has existed for mere thousands of years," continued Chancellor Vextar, his crimson eyes fixed on Chun. "The youngest member of this council has civilizations spanning 10 times that duration. What could you possibly offer that we have not already surpassed 1,000,000-fold?" Chun waited for the laughter to die down before responding. "We offer perspective," he said simply, "and perhaps something you may have forgotten in your long existence. We offer surprise." This brought fresh waves of amusement. The ethereal princes, beings who existed partially outside normal space-time, whispered among themselves in languages that bent reality. The hive mothers communicated through pheromone clouds that created temporary rainbow auroras in the chamber's atmosphere. Ultimatum: the formal vote was a foregone conclusion. Each species cast their decision into the central holodisplay, creating a cascade of negative symbols in dozens of alien scripts. The final tally was unanimous. Humanity was deemed unworthy of membership in the Galactic Coalition, but Chancellor Vextar wasn't finished. He stood again, his ceremonial armor catching the light from the dome above. "However," he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, "we are not without mercy. Humanity will be given one opportunity to prove their worth." The chamber fell silent. Even the energy beings stopped their constant flickering. "We will send a demonstration fleet to your solar system," Vextar continued. "Not to conquer, but to educate. If humanity can demonstrate even the slightest capability against our forces, we will reconsider your application. This is more consideration than we have shown any species in the last 1,000 years." Ambassador Chun bowed slightly. "On behalf of humanity, I accept these terms." The laughter resumed, louder than before. The idea that humans could offer any resistance to Krotak military might was apparently the greatest joke the council had heard in decades. Chun maintained his composure as he was escorted from the chamber. But inside, he was smiling. They had no idea what was waiting for them back home. The hidden preparation 3 weeks later, in the shadow of Jupiter's moon Europa, the U's Defiance hung in space like a predator waiting to strike. The ship was nothing like the crude vessels humanity had presented to the galaxy. Where human ships were typically angular and functional, the Defiance flowed like liquid mercury, its hull covered in materials that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Captain Sarah Nova stood on the bridge, watching Europa's ice-covered surface rotate slowly beneath them. At 35, she was young for a ship commander, but her eyes held the weight of someone who had seen the impossible made real. Her crew called her the Ghost Captain, not because she was mysterious, but because she had a talent for making her ship invisible to enemy sensors. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Torres from the communication station, "we're receiving the final authorization codes from Earth Command." Nova nodded without turning. "Dr. Wright, how are our systems?" "Dr. James." Wright looked up from his console, his gray hair disheveled from hours of last-minute adjustments. At 62, he was one of Earth's finest engineers and the primary architect of the Defiance's impossible technology. "All systems are operating beyond specifications, Captain. The salvaged Krodak power cores are running at 103% efficiency. The Zephyrian energy shields are fully charged, and the Veil Consortium prediction engines are showing a 94.7% probability of mission success." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Every piece of advanced technology on this ship had been salvaged, stolen, or reverse-engineered from the very species that had just rejected humanity's membership application. For 20 years, Earth's best scientists had worked in secret, studying every scrap of alien technology that had ever fallen into human hands. "Captain," called the sensor operator, "we're detecting gravitational distortions at the edge of the system. Multiple signatures, approaching from galactic north." Nova smiled. "Right on time. How many ships?" 57 vessels, ma'am." "Configuration matches Krodak Imperial Navy standards, with support ships from at least 6 other coalition species." Dr. Wright whistled softly. "They're not taking any chances." "No," Nova agreed. "They're making sure the lesson is memorable." She moved to the captain's chair, her hands resting lightly on the armrests. "All stations battle ready. But remember, we're not here to start a war. We're here to end one before it begins." The Coalition Fleet Admiral Crixon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the bloodied Talon, watching the primitive star system grow larger on his screens. Behind him, 56 other ships maintained perfect formation, a display of coalition power that could reduce most civilizations to ash within hours. The Admiral was a veteran of the Spiral Wars, having commanded fleets against the Silicon Builders, Rebellion, and the infamous Void Cult Uprising. His scarred hide told the story of 1,000 battles, and his crimson eyes had watched entire species kneel before coalition might. This assignment was beneath him, but orders were orders. Asterisk. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we've completed our scan of the system. 9 planets, typical stellar composition. The 3rd planet shows extensive industrial activity and orbital installations. Any sign of military response?" "Negative. Sir, were detecting what appeared to be civilian vessels fleeing the outer system, but no organized fleet movement. Crixon nodded. It was always the same. Species that talked bravely in council chambers fled like startled prey when real power arrived. Take us to the third planet. Standard intimidation formation. We'll give them a close look at what real starships look like. The fleet adjusted course, their massive engines leaving traces of exotic radiation in their wake. Each ship was a masterwork of military engineering, combining the best technologies of their respective species. The Crotic ships were heavily armored fortresses, built to endure any punishment. The Zephyrian vessels pulsed with contained energy, their hulls barely containing the power within. The insectoid swarm craft moved in perfect coordination, like a school of metallic fish. "Sir," the sensor operator called out, "we're detecting an anomaly near the fourth planet." "Clarify." "There's something there, but our sensors can't get a clear reading. It's almost like it's not entirely in normal space." Admiral Crixon moved to the sensor station, studying the readings. "Probably some primitive stealth system. The humans are trying to hide that pathetic fleet behind one of their gas giants." The bridge crew chuckled. The idea that human stealth technology could fool coalition sensors was amusing. "Shall we investigate, Admiral?" Crixon considered a moment, then shook his head. "Let them cower. We'll deal with their main world first, then hunt down whatever they're hiding out there." Behind Jupiter, Captain Nova watched the coalition fleet pass by, completely unaware of the predator shadowing them. The Defiance's hybrid stealth systems, combining technologies from 6 different species, made them effectively invisible to the very sensors that had created those technologies. "They're heading straight for Earth," reported Lieutenant Torres. "Of course they are," Nova replied. "Dr. Wright, are you ready to show them what happens when you underestimate humanity?" The elderly engineer smiled, his fingers dancing across his console. "Captain, I've been ready for this moment for 20 years." The coalition fleet continued toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Behind them, hidden in the shadows of the outer system, the Ghost Captain prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson they would never forget. Asterisk. They're reckoning the arrival. The Owlishan demonstration fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. There, 57 ships creating a wall of metal and energy that stretched across Earth's sky. On the surface below, humans looked up through their telescopes and satellites, seeing power beyond their wildest nightmares made manifest above their world. Admiral Crixon stood proudly on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger on his main screen. The blue marble looked so fragile, so defenseless. A single one of his ships could glass the entire surface in minutes. But that wasn't the point of this exercise. This was about teaching respect. "Open a communication channel to the planet," he ordered. "Let's see how brave they are when facing real power." The transmission array activated, broadcasting on all human frequencies simultaneously. Crixon's massive form appeared on every screen, every monitor, every communication device on Earth. "People of Earth," his voice boomed, translated into hundreds of human languages simultaneously. "I am Admiral Crixon of the Crodak Imperial Navy, commanding this coalition demonstration fleet. Your representatives came before our council with arrogance, claiming worthiness to stand among the star's true masters. You have been judged and found wanting." Around the world, humans gathered around their screens, watching this alien commander with a mixture of fear and defiance. But in the hidden command centers, Earth's military leaders were smiling. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "However," Crixon continued, "we are not without mercy. Surrender now. Acknowledge your place as a minor species under coalition. Protection, and no harm will come to your world. Resist, and we will demonstrate why 1,000 civilizations have knelt before our might." The transmission ended, leaving Earth in silence. For exactly 30 seconds, then every human communication system on the planet activated simultaneously. The response came not from Earth's surface, but from the darkness between the stars. Captain Sarah Nova's face appeared on the Coalition. Fleet screens, her expression calm and determined. "Admiral Crixon," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the void. "This is Captain Sarah Nova of the United Earthship Defiance. You were warned that humanity might surprise you. Consider this your final warning. Withdraw from our system immediately, or face the consequences." The impossible ship, the Coalition bridge, erupted in laughter. Crixon himself was nearly doubled. Over with amusement. One ship? The humans were sending one ship against 57 Coalition vessels? "Captain Nova," he replied, his voice heavy with mirth, "please tell me you're not serious. Where is this mighty vessel of yours? Our sensors detect nothing but empty space." The answer came not in words, but in reality bending around them. Space itself seemed to ripple, and suddenly the Defiance was there, materializing between the Coalition fleet and Earth like a nightmare given form. The ship was beautiful and terrible, its hull flowing like liquid shadow, covered in materials that seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal matter should allow. The laughter on the Coalition bridges died instantly. "Impossible," whispered Crixon's sensor operator. "Sir, our instruments. They're reading technology signatures from multiple Coalition species. That ship is using our own technology against us." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You're saying the humans stole from us?" "Not stole, sir. Reverse engineered. Those are Krotak power signatures, but modified. Zephyrian energy patterns, but configured in ways we've never seen. And, sir, there's something else. The quantum resonance patterns suggest they're using Veil Consortium prediction engines." Crixon felt a chill run down his spine. The Veil Consortium's prediction technology was their most closely guarded secret. If the humans had somehow acquired and improved upon it, "All ships," he commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet communication channels. "Battle formation. Prepare to demonstrate why Coalition technology remains superior, regardless of who tries to copy it." The dance of destruction, the Coalition fleet moved with practiced precision, their ships taking positions that had been perfected over centuries. Of warfare. Energy shields flared to life, weapon systems powered up, and targeting computers locked onto the single human vessel that dared to challenge them. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Nova watched the enemy formation complete itself with professional appreciation. "Dr. Wright, are you seeing this?" The elderly engineer nodded, his fingers flying across his console as he analyzed the Coalition ships. "Beautiful work, Captain. Classic hammer and anvil formation, with energy support vessels providing overlapping shield coverage. Textbook Coalition. Tactics. Any weaknesses? Oh, several. You see, the thing about textbook tactics is that everyone learns to read the same textbook." Wright's smile was predatory. "Captain, they're using the same formation they used against the Void Colt 20. Years ago. I've been studying the battle records for decades." Nova settled back in her command chair. "All stations, prepare for combat. Remember, we're not here to destroy them. We're here to embarrass them." The first salvo came from the Krotak heavy cruisers. Massive energy beams that could punch through a moon's crust. They struck the Defiance dead center, and for a moment the entire Coalition fleet held its breath. The beams vanished, not deflected, not absorbed. They simply ceased to exist, as if the space around the human ship had swallowed them whole. "What just happened?" demanded Admiral Crixon. His science officer was staring at his instruments in disbelief. "Sir, the humans have somehow created a localized space-time distortion. Our energy weapons are being redirected into an alternate dimensional pocket." "That's impossible." "Yes, sir, it should be. But they're doing it anyway. The Defiance moved with impossible grace, slipping between energy beams like a dancer avoiding raindrops. As it moved, it began to return fire, but not with the crude, kinetic weapons the Coalition expected from humans. Instead, precise beams of energy lanced out, each one perfectly calibrated. The first target was a Zephyrian energy cruiser. The human beam struck its shield generators with surgical precision, overloading them with their own reflected energy. The ship's weapons went offline, its engines died, and it began drifting helplessly. How did they know exactly where to hit us? Transmitted the Zephyrian captain, his energy form flickering with confusion. The answer came from the Defiance itself. Captain Nova's voice echoed across all Coalition frequencies. Because we built our ship from your discarded parts. We know. Every weakness, every system failure, every design flaw you've been ignoring for centuries. The systematic dismantling, what followed, was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration, a carefully choreographed performance that showcased the difference between raw power and surgical precision. The Defiance moved through the Coalition formation like a surgeon with a scalpel, each strike perfectly calculated to disable rather than destroy. A Crotic battleship found its main guns turned against its own shield generators. An insectoid swarm cluster discovered their hive mind communication network hijacked and used to coordinate their own shutdown. A silicon builder construct watched, in horror, as its own maintenance protocols were rewritten, forcing it to disassemble its weapon systems. This is impossible. Admiral Crixon raged as his flagship's weapons went offline one by one. No single ship can defeat an entire fleet. You're right, came Captain Nova's calm reply. No single ship should be able to do this. But you're not fighting a single ship, Admiral. You're fighting the combined ingenuity of an entire species that has spent 20 years studying your weaknesses while you ignored our strengths. Dr. Wright's voice joined the transmission from the Defiance's bridge. Every piece of technology you've discarded, every failed experiment, every primitive concept you've dismissed, we've taken it all and made it better. You taught us everything we needed to know to defeat you, simply by being too arrogant to notice we were learning. One by one, the Coalition ships fell silent. Not destroyed, not damaged beyond repair, but simply stopped. Their crews were alive, their hulls intact, but their ability to wage war had been surgically removed. Finally, only Admiral Crixon's flagship remained active, surrounded by 56 disabled vessels and one human ship that hung in space like a predator that had finished playing with its prey. The new understanding, the silence stretched across space for long minutes. Inside his disabled flagship, Admiral Crixon stared at his dead instruments, his mind trying to process what had just happened. His fleet, the most powerful demonstration of Coalition might ever assembled, had been neutralized by a single human vessel. Admiral, his communication officer reported, his voice subdued. We're receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it through. Captain Nova's image appeared on the main screen, but she was no longer alone. Standing beside her was Dr. Wright, and behind them, the diverse crew of the Defiance. Humans, yes, but also several beings that Crixon recognized with shock. Is that ... Is that a Zephyrian on your bridge? He asked. Nova nodded. Lieutenant Zareth chose to leave the Energy Collective 15 years ago. He's been helping us understand your technology ever since. She gestured to another figure. And this is Chief Engineer Clixtar, formerly of the Crotic Engineering Course. Turns out not everyone in the galaxy believes in your version of natural order. The Admiral felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine surprise. You have Coalition citizens on your crew? We have beings who believe in something your Coalition has forgotten, Nova replied. We believe that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. That cooperation achieves more than domination. That respect is earned, not demanded. Dr. Wright stepped forward. Admiral, every system on your ships has been temporarily disabled, but not damaged. Your crews are safe, your vessels intact. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first 30 seconds of engagement. Instead, we chose to prove our point without unnecessary loss of life. And what point is that? Crixon asked, though he already knew the answer. That humanity doesn't need your permission to claim our place among the stars, Nova said. We've been out here for 20 years already, exploring, learning, growing. We didn't come to your council to beg for acceptance. We came to offer partnership, to those wise enough to accept it. The aftermath 6 hours later. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council was the most chaotic in recorded history. The great assembly hall buzzed with electromagnetic interference as a dozen species all tried to communicate simultaneously. The holographic displays showed the impossible scene from Earth's solar system. 57 coalition ships floating helplessly, while a single human vessel maintained perfect operational status. High Chancellor Vextar stood at the center of the chamber, his usual confidence replaced by something approaching humility. The reports coming in from Admiral Crixon were detailed, verified, and completely unbelievable. The human ship, he announced to the assembly, utilized technology from at least 8 coalition species, including several systems we believe to be completely secure. Their tactical knowledge of our formations, our weaknesses, and our standard operating procedures suggests intelligence gathering on a scale we never imagined possible. The Zephyrian energy beings flickered with agitation. One of them spoke, its voice like the humming of power lines. They had one of our own kind on their crew, a voluntary defector we thought lost in a dimensional accident decades ago. The Crotic military representative, General Mordak, added his own report. 3 of our engineering specialists have been listed as missing in action for the past 15 years. It appears they weren't missing. They were recruited. Slowly, the full scope of humanity's preparation became clear. While the coalition had dismissed them as primitive newcomers, humans had been quietly building relationships with individuals from every member species, not through conquest or coercion, but through the simple revolutionary concept of treating other beings as equals. Ambassador Chun stood to address the council, his demeanor notably different from his previous appearance. Gone was the supplicant asking for permission. In his place stood a representative of equals. Honored delegates, he began, humanity extends an offer of alliance to the Galactic Coalition, not as junior members seeking approval, but as partners, ready to contribute our unique perspectives to the galaxy's future. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. The new dawn 1 month later, Captain Sarah Nova stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Embassy Station, watching ships from a dozen species dock at the facility humanity had built in orbit around Luna. The impossible had become routine. Humans working alongside Crotak engineers, Zephyrian energy beings collaborating with human scientists, former enemies sharing knowledge and resources. Dr. Wright joined her at the observation window, his graying hair now completely white from the stress and excitement of recent weeks. You know, he said, I don't think they've figured out the biggest secret yet. What's that? Nova asked. The elderly engineer smiled. The Defiance wasn't our most advanced ship. She was just the prototype. Nova returned his smile. How long before they realized that? Oh, I'd say about 6 months. That's when the resilience, the determination, and the perseverance will be ready for their shakedown cruises. In the distance, a new ship was taking shape in Earth's orbital shipyards, twice the size of the Defiance, incorporating technologies from every coalition member species and several new innovations that were purely human in origin. The galaxy had learned not to underestimate humanity, but humanity was just getting started. Ambassador Chun appeared on the deck behind them, carrying a datapad filled with new proposals and partnerships. "Captain, Doctor," he greeted them. "We've just received formal requests from 6 non-coalition species asking for Earth's assistance in joining the galactic community." Nova raised an eyebrow. "Already?" "News travels fast," Shun replied. "Apparently, there are a lot of species out there who've been dismissed by the Coalition as too primitive or insufficiently advanced. They want to know if humanity's approach might work for them too." Dr. Wright chuckled. "And here I thought we were going to get some rest after proving our point." "Rest is for species that have achieved their goals," Nova said, watching another human ship launch from the orbital yards. "We're just getting started. The galaxy is big, Doctor. There's room for everyone who's willing to work together." As if to emphasize her point, a communication chime sounded throughout the station. The message was from the Coalition Council, formally requesting Earth's assistance in mediating a territorial dispute between 2 member species. The request was addressed to our valued partners in the Human Alliance. Captain Nova smiled. 6 months ago, they had laughed at humanity's application for membership. Today, they were asking humans to help solve problems they couldn't handle themselves. The galaxy was learning that respect wasn't about the size of your fleet or the age of your civilization. It was about what you did with whatever advantages you had, and how you treated those who seemed to have less. Humanity had earned their place among the stars not through conquest, but through the simple radical act of proving that cooperation was stronger than domination, that diversity was more powerful than uniformity, and that the newest voice in the conversation might just have the most important things to say. The future stretched out before them, vast and full of possibilities. And for the first time in galactic history, every species in known space was invited to help write it.